Hello and welcome to this nighttime taste challenge. I have two Canadian blended whiskeys. This is Canadian Lake, introduced in 1992. Canadian whiskey with natural flavors, bottled by Oak Park Distilling Company, Baltimore, Maryland. Don't know where it's made. Doesn't say. It's got this fancy neck, but it's plastic. This company does make glass bottles, but this is plastic, even in the 750 milliliter. $15.99 for this huge bottle. Still not the cheapest price for Canadian whiskey. I can get Caliber at Walmart for $10.49. The price has actually gone down in the last 2 years over there for that whiskey. When it's in stock, actually it's not in stock right now for the big bottle. The little bottle, the standard 750 is in stock right now. That's $4.98. Crazy. Is it a good product? Well, it's okay. Here's the bag, khaki bag, gold or copper trim. It's got a copper cap. This is Crown Royal Bourbon Mash. Bought this at Mathern's. It was like $27. They're out of it now, and all the stores are out of it because this was discontinued last year. So I'm saying all the stores are out of it. They might have some leftover bottles on the shelf. It's only discontinued a year ago. This had a controversial history. It was introduced in 2018. They were making it like bourbon. In other words, it was a bourbon style Canadian whiskey, mostly corn with rye and malted barley. You say, well, most Canadian whiskeys are that way. That's right. Aged in new charred oak barrels. Okay. But they didn't call it a bourbon because it can't be a bourbon. It's not from the United States. But they called it bourbon mash. The U.S. government said that's fine. Then bourbon companies complained and said that it was going to trick consumers into thinking it was a bourbon. I don't know why they would think that. It doesn't claim to be. So the government changed their mind and said, oh yeah, you can't call it that. You got to call it something else. So they changed the name to Blender's Mash. And I started seeing this bottle at the store with stickers on it, on the box, comes in a cardboard box saying this product is not a bourbon. And then about 5 or 6 months, the Blender's Mash started showing up, and the Bourbon Mash was phased out. It was the same product. Now, give you a website. I'll show you the website. What I like about Crown Royal is they show you discontinued whiskeys in their retired section. Crown Royal Blender's Mash showcased past tense the vanilla and subtle oaky notes of our beloved corn heavy whiskeys. Blender's Mash that's a misprint there, bad grammar. A classic whiskey style, but with the famous smooth finish, allowing the whiskey to stand on its own. So they're not saying it, but it was a beautiful bottle. Just an attempt to do something different, not step on any toes, but people the bourbon companies, I should say, got upset. Now, I mean, most people didn't get upset. But I was lucky to find a bottle of the original name, the Bourbon Mash. Okay, it's much darker, as you can see. It's copper colored. And this one is just amber gold. There's zero chance I'm going to confuse the two, because Blender's Mash, Bourbon Mash, doesn't taste like anything else. I mean, any other Canadian whiskey I've had. I mean, it tastes like some bourbons, and there's no doubt about that. But it is a Canadian whiskey. I think if they hadn't had the controversy and all of that, it would still be around as Bourbon Mash and popular. But like I say, these companies don't like competition, and they'll use the government to squelch it, because they couldn't really truthfully say it was violating the bourbon protocols, because it wasn't. Never claimed to be bourbon. But I don't know. You know how these companies are. Smells like kind of like burnt popcorn, which makes sense. You get the charred oak and the pop and the corn, and you get that kind of sensation. Over here, smells like sweet corn and vanilla. Okay, so this is the bourbon mash, and I'm gonna get it correct on aroma only. Got it. Shows you how easy that was. So that puts me at 16 wins, 2 losses out of 18 challenges, which is great. That's an 8 win to 1 loss ratio. I only got it confused twice. And that was with other Sazerac, 89% win ratio. That was with other Sazerac Canadian whiskey products, their standard ones. Yes, Oak Park Distilling is part of Sazerac. Rich corn, meal, corn grits. I just ate grits this morning. Maybe that was a mistake. Yellow corn grits with sausage. That may have been a mistake. Charred oak, medium body, mostly dry finish. Now, this one over here is going to have the medium body and mostly dry finish. So this lamp is not quite positioned correctly. Okay. Vanilla, little almond oil or walnut oil. I'm just saying, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the natural flavors are. It's just a guess. Seems that way. Canadian whiskey is allowed to use natural flavoring, and they're allowed to have caramel color added. They don't have to put it on the label. This one says with natural flavors, doesn't indicate any kind of coloring. And this company, Sazerac, they're good about telling you if they add caramel coloring, they'll put it right on the label. If they add natural flavoring, they'll put it right on the label. But this one only indicates flavoring. So I'm thinking this is the natural color, the actual color. So yeah, age probably 3 to 6 years, more like 3. And used barrels almost assuredly. This one, like I told you, is aged at least 3 years, and considering it was $27 in new charred oak barrels. If they had made this across the river from Canada in the United States, like say even Michigan, it would be a bourbon. Since they made it in Canada, in Manitoba, that province, then it's a not a bourbon. You say a bourbon by any other name is still a bourbon. Well, essentially, but not technically, no. You can make bourbon all day long in Canada, but you just can't call it bourbon. You call it Canadian blended whiskey. It could be the same exact thing. You can use a new charred oak barrel, make it mostly corn, age it 10 years if you want. That's the technical difference. Bourbon legally can only be made in the United States. Okay. But bourbon whiskey is almost always a blended whiskey. And you got some people that freak out over blended. If they hear blended, they think it's inferior. Like, oh, that makes it worse. Like that line of thinking makes no sense. Okay. The fact that you would take different types of whiskeys, rye whiskey, malted barley whiskey, and corn whiskey, and blend them and then age them, or age before you blend, would make it inferior is madness, Anyway, the clear and present winner is the Canadian, not the Canadian Lake, the Crown Royal Blenders Mash, aka originally known as Bourbon Mash. is it worth the extra money? $27 versus the about $9 for the regular size of this one. It is worth the extra $18, in fact. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and y'all take care now. Bye-bye.